Archives of Prasar Bharati presents the timeless treasure of golden era.
The Parliament is the most visible and prominent institution of our democracy. It is the embodiment of the sovereignty of the people and the organ through which this supreme power is exercised. Although there are many references to people's representative assemblies in ancient times, the modern Parliament has evolved gradually during the past 100 years in the course of the Indian freedom struggle, slowly with unfolding constitutional developments. The present Parliament has inherited a lot from the Westminster system, the form of parliamentary government practiced in Great Britain. It is important to note, though, that India is a republic and a federal polity, very different from Great Britain. Despite many outward similarities in its essence, the Indian Parliament reflects Indian reality. The majestic circular building of Indian Parliament is part of the complex that came up in the 1920s when the new imperial capital was being built. The architects, Lutyens and Baker tried to blend the traditional Indian with the modern Western to come out with architectural designs rich in symbolism. The Parliament is not merely a building of stone and mortar. The foundation stone was laid by the Duke of Connaught. It took many years and thousands of workers to raise the edifice that would become the seat of Indian democracy. And when the building was complete, it was inaugurated with great pomp and show. The Vice-Regal House, now the Rashtrapati Bhavan, was perched at the highest point in the ridge, suggesting that it was built on the consecrated crest of sacred Mount Meru. It was flanked by the two pillars of the government, the bureaucracy, and the armed forces, housed in the north and south blocks. A short distance away stood the Central Legislative Council, where hand-picked representatives of the people deliberated and advised the representative of the crown. This building was the venue where the Chamber of Princes held its meetings. The design of this building was imposing and aesthetically pleasing. Inside, the halls are large with ample provision of light and air. The decorations are simple yet subtle. Jutting balconies, the special visitors gallery, and ornate windows with fine stone-carved screens remind the visitor of places and opulent mansions in princely India. Like other structures in New Delhi, this too makes generous use of red sandstone from Dholpur, and the facade with large pillars recalls classical Greek and Roman assemblies. Due to a series of happy coincidences, the symbolism matches the ideals of Indian democracy. The same building houses the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha. The central hall is used on ceremonial occasions and to hold joint sessions of the Parliament.
India is not simply emerging. India has emerged.
In parliamentary democracy, Parliament is supposed to be supreme as the representative of the people, and the government is responsible to the people through the parliament, which includes people's representatives.
Representation in the parliament contributes crucially in bridging the geographical and emotional distance that separate Indians dwelling in a country that is in fact a subcontinent. From Andamans to Kashmir, from the deserts of Rajasthan to the green eastern India, all those who get elected and those who elect them share a sense of being masters of their own destiny and belonging to this great nation.
Parliament is one of the major pillars of democracy. And if Parliament doesn't function properly, then the whole system gets unbalanced. Democracy has got to be nurtured. We are very proud of the fact that we've run a democracy for 60 years. It's a unique achievement. We are now growing economically also. But we mustn't allow the basis of democracy to be weakened. And that means we've got to strengthen the parliamentary system. We've got to accept parliamentary procedures.
The composition of the parliament has changed dramatically since the years of independence. The first provisional parliament came into being when the Constituent Assembly transformed into the Parliament of India. This continued until the first elected parliament could be formed after the general elections in 1952. Many of the conventions and procedures were established during the sessions of the provisional parliament.
A system, an institution rules on certain rules and regulations, and that's how the House is conducted. And the responsibility of conducting the House is that of the presiding officer, the Speaker, the Chairman, the Deputy Speaker and the Deputy Chairman of Rajya Sabha.
स्पीकर के बारे में भी यही है कि जब वो चुन लिए गए तो वो दल से ऊपर हो गए और मावलंकर जी से अब शुरू हुआ तो आप सब जानते हैं बड़े बड़े विद्वान लोग स्पीकर हुए, बड़े निष्पक्ष भाव से काम करने की सभी ने कोशिश किया और ये भी मैं मानता हूं कि जो कुर्सी है वही आदमी को ट्रांसफॉर्म करता है.
G.V. Mavalankar was elected the presiding officer and was re-elected the Speaker of Lok Sabha in 1952. A.S. Iyengar was elected his deputy and served as the second Speaker of Indian Parliament. The Speaker is the person who plays a pivotal role in conducting the proceedings, maintaining order, and guarding the privileges of the House. The Indian Parliament has been fortunate in having been led by men of such distinction. There are many others who assist him in this task. For instance, the Parliamentary Affairs Minister, the whips of the political parties and others.
जो सरकारी दल के मुख्य सचेतक होते हैं वही संसदीय कार्य मंत्री होते हैं. इनका काम फ्लोर मैनेजमेंट है जाना जाए. अगर ये सही ढंग से फ्लोर मैनेजमेंट करेंगे तो किसको लाभ अल्टीमेटली होगा? अध्यक्ष को, स्पीकर को सदन चलाने में. सिर्फ स्पीकर की जवाबदेही सदन चलाना नहीं है, वो तो अध्यक्ष हैं, रूल्स के मुताबिक, नियम के मुताबिक, संविधान के मुताबिक चले, वो तो देखना ही देखना है. लेकिन उनके सहयोग के लिए पूरे सदन के सदस्यों का और खास करके जो ये मुख्य सचेतक लोग हैं इनकी भूमिका है विधिवत जाना जाए, ये जरूरी होता है.
Members of the Lok Sabha are elected directly by the people.
Abdullah Saeed, having been elected a member of the House of the People, do swear in the name of God that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of India as by law established.
Universal adult franchise ensures that those elected are truly representatives of the Indian people, cutting across class, caste, and community. The elections are supervised by the Election Commission of India, a body autonomous and independent that ensures free and fair elections. General elections in India conducted by the Election Commission are believed to be the largest bureaucratic exercise in the world. Our parliament is a bicameral one. Lok Sabha is the directly elected lower house, while Rajya Sabha, called the Council of States or the House of Elders, is indirectly elected members.
People don't understand that sometimes that what is the role of Lok Sabha, how it functions, and what is the role of Rajya Sabha. There are misunderstanding that Lok Sabha is superior to Rajya Sabha, which is not true. These are the two wings of the parliament.
Rajya Sabha means a Sabha belonging to the Raj. People otherwise think it is a Rajya Sabha and something belonging to the central state. No. Here Raj means the Raj is the terminology for the provinces. So it is a Sabha representing their interests. So first thing, there must be a clear understanding that if there is any legislation which affects negatively the interests of the state from which you are coming, then you have a point to raise it and to oppose it or to get it modified. Secondly, if it impinges upon federalism, then you can again intervene into it.
Nehru was committed to parliamentary democracy and exerted all his life to lay strong foundations for the success of Indian Parliament. Even as Prime Minister, he accorded highest priority to proceedings in the House. He seldom missed a sitting and took active part in the question hour and in various debates. He encouraged dissent and accepted gracefully a genuine difference of opinion. All he insisted upon was that members should conduct themselves with dignity and respect to the rulings from the chair. He severely admonished members of his own party when they seemed to transgress from the prescribed code. He treated the most bitter of his opponents, some of them his erstwhile colleagues, like Acharya J.B. Kriplani, Meenu Masani and Dr. Ram Manohar Lohia with utmost courtesy and grace. No one can deny Nehru the credit that is due to him for establishing healthy conventions in the House. In 6 decades and more, the Indian Parliament has provided the platform for some of the most inspiring and historic speeches. Enactment of a bill or its failure to pass muster has often hinged on their powerful oratory. Years later, their memory remains green, and even ideological opponents concede their greatness as a parliamentarian. The Indian Constitution follows the principle of separation of powers between the 3 branches of governance: the legislature, judiciary, and the executive. There have been occasions when a passing conflict has risen due to contending claims regarding jurisdiction and privilege.
This is the only country which reconciles the institutions of governance with federalism. Hence, it was not only separation of powers, it was also division of powers and responsibilities and jurisdictional divisions.
Although the actual experience has been that the Indian Republic has functioned more as a unitary state than a federal polity. India is a plural society that displays great diversity in its politics. This is reflected in the large number of political parties of different hue that send their representatives to the parliament. During the national movement, leaders professing different ideologies were united in the anti-colonial struggle, and the Indian National Congress, guided by Mahatma Gandhi, acted as a large umbrella under which people of different political hue could stand. Soon after independence, the inevitable process of splintering started. The communists gave a call for revolution and embarked on a separate path. The socialists too distanced themselves from the Congress and the Nehru government. They felt that Nehru's commitment to socialism was no longer credible as his cabinet included powerful leaders with reactionary status quo views. On the other hand, there was a substantial segment of political leadership that felt threatened by the revolutionary fervour of the young socialist Turks within the Congress party. They formed a separate group that spawned the Swatantra Party led by Chakravarti Raja Gopalachari. Most of its members belonged to the class of landlords, princely families and capitalists. The Hindu religious sentiment was articulated by the Hindu Mahasabha and the Jan Sangh. In addition, there were smaller groups like the Akali Dal and Muslim League giving voice to religious minorities. With the passage of years, regional political parties emerged claiming to be the guardians of the interests of the people with a distinct cultural identity and presented themselves as champions of federalism. The essence of parliamentary democracy lies more in intangible and personal elements and not so much in the text of the Constitution. The spirit of the Constitution manifests in the members who occupy it and bring it alive. The vibrancy of the Indian democracy is palpable when members belonging to different political persuasions contend in the House. From the beginning till today, elected representatives of the people have debated complex issues, made stirring speeches, and enacted historic legislations. These are truly hallowed precincts. In the early years, the Indian Parliament was particularly fortunate to have among the members some of the most powerful orators in the land. The Prime Minister and the leader of the House, Jawaharlal Nehru, was an exceptionally eloquent speaker. The government had other leaders like Rafi Ahmad Kidwai, Vijay Lakshmi Pandit, and Maulana Azad to support them. The talent on the opposition benches was no less impressive. Hiren Mukherjee was tireless and brilliant in cornering the government. Meenu Masani had razor-sharp intellect and sparkling wit that made him a star. Acharya J.B. Kripalani of the Socialist Party and A.K. Gopalan among the Communists cast a spell on the listeners and kept the government on its toes. Many of these eminent parliamentarians continued to serve the nation for almost 2 decades. Some like Professor N.G. Ranga, the member of the Constituent Assembly, remained active in Parliament as late as 9th Lok Sabha. In recent years, the proceedings in the House are directly telecast. This has led to a heated debate about the impact of this coverage on the events in the House.
We went by the rules of the House. We have never raised the question. I have never raised one objection beyond the rules of the procedure. Only with the book, the rule book and other things we used to do. Same thing I want the present opposition also should, because one day you are going to become the government also. That if you shout and does not have anything, same thing will be repeated to you.
The decision to telecast the proceedings of the House live was taken to let the people know what their elected representatives were doing to further their interests.
One thing that I would like to say is, earlier media used to cover Parliament much better than it does now. If Shama Prasad Mukherjee or Acharya J.B. Kripalani, or for that matter Hridaynath Kunjru or Kamath, if any one of them made a good speech in Parliament, it would be reported. Now, howsoever good a speech may be, it is in the category of dog bites man. It makes no news. But if a member tears off his shirt on the floor of the House, lies down on the floor of the House, disturbs the proceedings of the House, shouts, uses abusive language, that is given front page.
The debate continues and there is no general agreement. It is important to note that though in the beginning our forefathers had borrowed heavily from the Westminster model, it was never their intention to mindlessly ape or mimic the British system.
If you look at the Constituent Assembly debates and the debates, the great debates of the 1950s, there are people who are contending against very strongly against a strong Westminster kind of structure again in India. Now they are saying, look here, we have our own traditions and the Westminster kind of a model is not applicable to India. While elements of it might be appropriate, eventually we need to create institutions which are suitable to this country and to this soil.
The composition of the House continues to display all the colors of the rainbow till date. The composition of the Parliament both in Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha has changed dramatically in recent years. The profile of the members in terms of age, profession and educational qualifications has changed with passage of time. An equally important change can be witnessed due to the breakdown of the single party dominance. In the era of coalition governments, many of the traditions and conventions are under stress. The shrill voice and what may at times appear as unruly behavior of the members in the House should not cause unnecessary distress. It is the impatient articulation of the aspirations of a people who have waited perhaps too long to get their due. What the Indian parliamentary system has succeeded in is to realize the dream of Gurudev Rabindranath Tagore, an inspiration to generations of Indian freedom fighters who had prayed for independent India to be a land where the head is held high and the mind is without fear.